Good afternoon, everybody. We are here this afternoon to talk about the year-end review for crime in the District of Columbia for the year 2011, which of course ends tomorrow. On December 31st, obviously. First of all, I'm delighted to be here with Chief Lanier, who I am very, very pleased to say, I think, continue to say, is one of the best chiefs of police in America. And I'm delighted to have her on board working with us. And also with our city administrator, Alan Liu, and our deputy mayor for public safety and justice, Paul Quander, both of whom, too, I'm delighted to be able to work with every day. We're here today to talk about what we think is phenomenal progress in a number of areas, having looked at crime across the board and, of course, in combating crime here in the District of Columbia. As many of you will remember, when I was sworn in just under a year ago, we talked about public safety being one of the 4 top priorities on which we would focus, and we've certainly tried to be true to that commitment. One of the things that we are certainly very proud of is the reduction in homicides in the District of Columbia. As the year comes to a close, we have seen, as of this moment, with about 30 hours left to go, 36 hours, whatever, an 18.2% reduction in homicides in the District of Columbia. Last year, 2010, we had 132 homicides. At this point, we have 108 homicides. Again, that is an 18.2% decline, and is the lowest number of homicides we've had in the District of Columbia since 1963, which I believe was the last year when we actually had under 100 homicides here in the city. That would be 48 years ago. Again, I want to commend the chief and all of the officers who are working with her every day in order to be able to achieve this level of reduction in homicides. One of the other, I think, astounding accomplishments is a 94% closure rate in homicides in the District of Columbia. And I believe the national average is somewhere around 60%, 56%. So obviously that is a phenomenal accomplishment and contributes mightily, I think, to having gotten us to the point where we have seen such a reduction. I'm also very pleased because there's certain areas that historically have been viewed as places where there's been a high concentration of homicides. Those would be the 6th District, which is where I live. I live in the 6th District of the city, and the 7th District. In 2011, we saw a 56% reduction in homicides in the 7th District, and a 10% reduction in the 6th District, obviously, again, contributing mightily to the reductions that we've seen. We are a city that is growing, and I think it's because people are feeling safer, because they are safer in the District of Columbia. We just got the news from the Census Bureau that we had almost a 17,000 person increase in the population here in the District of Columbia over the last 14 to 15 months here in the city. We are now at 618,000 people. Over the last decade was the first population growth that we saw in many years in this city, and certainly this represents, again, phenomenal growth. We're continuing to focus on our major priorities, achieving fiscal stability here in the city, continuing to improve public education, working on getting people back to work. We saw a 0.5% reduction in unemployment in the District of Columbia. And we think undergirding all of that, of course, is a focus on public safety here in the city. We also are focusing on bringing aboard new officers. For the first time in 3 years, we will see a net increase this year in the number of police officers that will be a part of the MPD. We budgeted for, on the fiscal year beginning October 1st, adding 300 new officers. About 180 of those officers will actually deal with attrition because we lose somewhere around 14 or 15 officers a month. We've got a number of officers now who are approaching retirement, having fulfilled 25 years of commitment to the city. We will backfill those positions of somewhere between 100 and 185. But we also then will add another on top of that 115 to 120 officers hiring 300 officers actually will result in more police officers at the end of calendar year 2012. If all goes well, we should have somewhere in the neighborhood of 3,900 plus police officers working on our behalf here in the District of Columbia. So, with that having been said, again, I want to congratulate MPD. I want to congratulate Deputy Mayor Quander and City Administrator Liu for all of us coming together to work effectively on this effort. Chief Lanier is going to talk in more detail about some of the statistical data that was compiled during this current calendar year, and also talk about some of the realignments and things that will have been done upcoming to continue to keep crime moving in the direction that it is, and that is being a lower crime rate in the city across the board. We've seen some upticks, I guess, in some areas, but we also saw a reduction in crime involving assault with a deadly weapon. We saw a reduction in auto thefts, even though we saw an increase in autos being broken into and items being taken. And we're continuing to work to address some of those. One area I might mention is that we saw a number of cab drivers this year being subjected to crime and robberies. And of course, taxi cab business is a cash business. By this time next year, we expect to be able to have, if not all, certainly a huge majority of our taxi cabs using credit cards, which will take cash out of the business substantially and make it more convenient for the customers, and obviously less convenient for those who would engage in robbing cab drivers. So we expect to see a reduction in that by 12 months from now. That having been said, let me turn it over to Chief Lanier at this stage.
I just want to start off by saying, you know, all the things that we've accomplished this year would not have been possible without a mayor who supports 100% any initiative that's going to improve public safety. There has not been one time this past year, especially over the summer when a lot of other resources that were non-police resources needed to go out into communities, that the deputy mayor, the city administrator, the mayor didn't make sure that every resource was available. So a lot of credit goes to having support to try and get things done. It was tremendous for us over the summer and keeping our communities safe. And also, you know, I have to kudos to our police department, the detectives in homicide who have achieved what is nothing short of spectacular, in my opinion. When I started here in 1990, the two things that used to really bother me is that we were known as the murder capital of the world and the city of unsolved homicides. Our detectives and our police officers have done an amazing job in turning that around. We are no longer either one of those things. So kudos to the men and women of Metropolitan Police Department who worked a lot of long hours to do what they did. And lastly, community members, we couldn't have gotten here without great support from the community. I'll show you a couple of things that I think are indicators to me that we have tremendous support from our community in every area of the city. So at any rate, what I'm going to do is I have a couple of graphics. I'll make those available for you afterwards if you would like to have them. But I compiled all the questions I've been getting from all of you and try to answer those in a couple of just quick graphs and slides. But, you know, the point of this press conference initially, there's three things that I need to accomplish here, and you guys take us into people's living rooms. So hopefully you'll help us with that in putting this forward on your broadcast. But first, we're doing a realignment. So our patrol districts are changing. So where you live and which police district you fall in and which PSA you fall in may change for you beginning on midnight on the 31st, going into January 1. So I need people to be aware of that. So that's one thing I'll cover real quickly with just the basic facts so people know what to expect. The other thing I want to accomplish is, obviously we're very happy about the reductions in homicide, the reductions in violent crime, but we have some challenges. And I need people to be aware of what those challenges are so that we can move those challenges in the right direction going forward. So I'm going to show you what I think is our single biggest public safety issues going forward. And it's very important that the public hears about that because they can help us tremendously in moving forward to try and drive those challenges down. And lastly, the accomplishments. I just want you to look at nationally where we stand here in Washington, D.C. when we talk about homicide closure rates, dropping of violent crime, and the trends across the country. So you can kind of see where we measure up against others. So hopefully my technology will work. Let's start with the I know what you guys are most excited about, the realignment of patrol districts. I'll just say most of the people in the city are not affected. Very, very small groups of people be affected. So the boundary lines in red are going to be the new boundaries. Everywhere there is a overlap in color, that's what's going to change. So you'll see there are some small changes down around the core of the city. I would encourage people to go to our website, which I'll put up, and as displayed here, there is all the information you need. What PSA do I live in? What district do I live in? Who's my district commander? Who's my manager of my police resources? So midnight, January 1st, or December 31st, going into January 1st, this is all the information is going to be available to you, so you'll know. All right, let's talk about where we are right now today in terms of the homicide reductions. As the mayor said, you know, if you look at the reductions, let's just look at 2008, between 2008 and 2011, somewhere around 42% reduction in murders in just 4 years, 3.5 years. So dramatic reduction in the past few years. This is one of the things that we put the most of our effort in. You know, the neighborhoods that were victimized the most were the neighborhoods east of the river. And so we've put all our effort into working with those communities and trying to reduce the number of victims east of the river. And if you look at the graph here, very dramatic drop-off of homicides east of the river. The 7th District has had a 56% reduction just this year. Just this year. Typically 6 and 7D, my whole career, 6 and 7D together would have more than 100 homicides a year. We've cut that in half. And I think the dramatic reductions over there, in large part, obviously great police leadership in our police districts over there, the commanders Maupin and Cathy, but the community has been tremendous. That community has stepped up to the plate and helped us to do what we had to get done and work with us to help make the community safer. And this is, to me, the most significant thing that we've accomplished. We pulled benchmark cities, major cities around the country. Yes, the trends have been going down for many, many years. And this is just how D.C. compares to other major cities right now in terms of homicide increases and reductions. You can see across the board there are some cities that are back on the uptick, that are moving up. Detroit, New Orleans, Philly, Kansas, all have increases. And with the cities that have decreases, Washington, D.C., on our benchmark cities has one of the largest decreases. So that 18% decrease this year means a lot to us. We always measure ourselves against others. And I'm glad to see D.C. now measuring well against other cities across the country. Our closure rate, as I said earlier, 56.7% national average for cities our size to close homicides. We're at 94%. And I will say that we have 2 open warrants right now for cases this year. We're going to ask for your help in getting that information out because we know who those 2 people are. And while I'd love to have them in custody right now, I'd love to have them in custody before the end of the year because these are 2 cases that right now we have not been able to put our hands on people that are wanted. So, and that also would bump us up to 96% closure rate. So again, great work by the detectives. The time it takes us to close a case has dropped dramatically. That only can be accomplished through a great working relationship with all of our partners. We work well with all of our federal partners. We work well with the U.S. Attorney's Office, and that has helped us. 33 of our homicides this year were closed within 7 days, many of which we had several that were closed on the scene, but several that were closed very quickly because the public came forward. The attorneys worked closely with the police department and the detectives. We had supervision agencies that stepped up to the plate. So this is tremendous progress, and that has what stopped the spikes in violence that we used to see. That retaliatory violence, we don't have weekends where we have 11 or 12 shootings and 7 homicides because the detectives work around the clock with our partners, and we take those people off the street before the retaliation begins. Here's the 2 suspects we want. These are 2 open homicide cases. We have open warrants. We are looking for these folks. We have some information. They may, at least one of them is still in the area. One of the others may have left the area, but if you know who these folks are, I don't care how you get us the information. If you want to do it anonymously, we've got the text tip line. All the information is on here, 50411. Give it to us anonymously with as much detail as possible, but we want to get these 2 guys off the street. Their family members of these victims deserve that. All right, let's talk about our challenges going forward. I'll give you the most staggering statistic that I got. Right now in the city, there is a 4% increase in robberies. Although armed robberies, if you see down here, armed robberies are down again. Armed robberies down 12%. This is multiple years we've been able to drive armed robberies down. The unarmed robberies are up 12%, and I want to show you what that's all about. Of all the crimes we count, when you look at our daily crime report, all of our Part 1 offenses, 55% of every crime that we track is theft and theft from auto. 55%. And if you add into there the unarmed robberies, which is about 70%, snatching people's cell phones and iPods from them as they exit a train, as they walk down the street, that number jumps up to 64%. The single largest crime issue in the United States, from what I can see, and had been overseas, is this theft of small mobile devices, whether it be your iPhone, your iPad, your iPod, your small laptop, your Android, whatever it is. If it's small mobile electronic devices, it is the hottest commodity on the market. And if you look at the total number of crimes that we capture, this is driving crime in the District of Columbia and also in major cities like New York and other places. Now, there's an interesting discussion that in Western Europe, they have technology in place so that these devices cannot be resold. The black market is what's driving this. Somebody snatches your phone, they can very quickly sell it on the black market, and it can be sold to somebody else and used. So we would like to see some change in the laws in the United States that would prohibit that from being possible. Because when you take away the profit, you take away the drive. Right now, the folks, because of this market, are breaking into people's cars. They're stealing from people while they're sitting in restaurants, and they're stealing from people walking down the street because they can very quickly turn that technology around. Now, I can't get into the specifics of the case, but let me tell you, we just recently had a case where we came across one of those markets where the phones and the iPads and the computers that were being stolen were very quickly being resold. We recovered 1,000 items. 1,000 items in a single place where a person was receiving property that was taken from cars that were broken into, robberies on the street where they run by and snatch your phone out of your hand, and some burglaries, and very quickly turning this property back over and reselling on the market. So I'm sure there are other places out there like that. So we're going to work hard to combat that through sting operations like we've done in the past. But this is a nationwide problem, and it's really our single biggest problem going forward. So my message to those of you in your living rooms that are watching this, please, in New York City right now, if you get on the train, there is an announcement before you enter each stop that says, please put away your mobile devices. Because that's how prevalent a problem this is. Be mindful when you're walking down the street, when you're sitting on a public transportation, especially as you approach stops, that there are opportunists that are going to try and snatch what you have in your hand and run with it. And you can help a lot with that by just being aware of that and not leaving those devices in your car, visible on the seat, so somebody will break into your car and take them. Because there is a market for them, and it's really making it difficult for us to combat this crime. Here's the headline from the New York Daily News that I pulled. They're calling it E-Crime Wave, sweeping the city. They're seeing exactly what we're seeing. Almost all of their crime involving robberies, thefts, and theft from autos is being driven by the theft of these electronic devices. All right, sexual assaults. Obviously as the population grows, and obviously as we have more and more commercial establishments, more and more alcohol establishments, we're going to see different types of crimes go up. Our single biggest problem right now in dealing with sexual assaults is specifically in the 7th District. We've had reductions in 2D, 52% reduction up in the 2nd District, which we had some challenges in the past. We've had, at the same time, a significant increase in the 7th District. What obviously was most concerning to us is stranger cases. In most of the cases, the suspect and the victim are at least known to each other as an acquaintance. It makes it easier for us to bring the perpetrator to justice. But when it's a complete stranger case, that's very disturbing. Not only is it very difficult to close, but it's scary that there are people out there that will commit an offense like a sexual assault against a complete stranger. It's very dangerous, and it's a scary proposition. In the 7th District, we have, I believe, 12 cases. Now, 1 or 2 of those cases have been closed, but we still have at least 10 open cases involving strangers in the 7th District. So this is one of our challenges going forward. And if I have to get a message to anybody, I always try and talk to our young folks. Now, I raised a son, not a daughter, but I see the trends, and what I see in the reporting that comes through is I can't stress enough that if you are out with your friends or if you're going to be drinking and you're out in public, make sure you have a buddy or a partner that's with you, because people who prey on other folks are looking for that weakness. They will take advantage of someone who has had Alcohol is not maybe making the best judgments. So if you're going out and you're going to be somewhere and you're going to be drinking, have a buddy with you. Don't separate from your buddy. At least not while you're drinking. If you want to, reconnect with somebody later on when you haven't been drinking, that's your safest bet. But I can't tell you how many of these cases are associated with victimization of people who under the influence of alcohol. All right, those are the big things going forward. I'm going to skip through most of. One last thing I wanted to talk about is online reporting. Right after we roll out this new redistricting, part of our strategy of improving crime fighting in the city and keeping officers more on the street to prevent crime is we're going to go to an online reporting tool. So this is just the newest piece of technology we're going to implement. So starting in early January, and you can find information on this now. I think this is actually a live link here. Nobody's controlling my thing here. But you'll be able to go online yourself and report certain types of crimes, lost property, things like that yourself without having to dial 911 and wait for a police officer to come to your house, take the report. Everything will be done online. This will save a tremendous amount of man hours in policing and keep our officers out there in the neighborhood preventing crime instead of, doing things that can be done online by, you from your home at the time of your convenience. So this will be going online in early January, and this will also help us to continue to move forward in public safety. So I think with that, I'm ready to take any questions.
Chief, the criminologists ascribe the decline in violent crime, homicide in particular, to a lot of factors, and they don't agree. But from your perspective, what factors do you think are the most significant?
Well, I'm not going to talk about nationwide. I think there's a lot of things that impact the nationwide trend. In Washington, D.C., I've been policing here for 21 years, and I think I know our community. I think the things that have helped us tremendously is that we have a better relationship with people in the community. If the people in the community don't trust the police, if they don't know you by name, if they can't talk to you and feel comfortable that you're not going to share information and that you're going to act on that information, they don't tell you anything. We've had to demonstrate through relationship building that if a person shares information with us, we're going to take immediate action and stop bad things from happening and protect their identity. That's helped us tremendously. We don't see closure rates like this in a lot of places. That takes a long time to build those relationships. That's the single biggest factor. Solving homicides. Think about it, especially here in the district. Again, talking specifically about the district. What we saw when our homicide rate was so high is immediate retaliation and gang violence, back and forth, back and forth. We saw it in 2008 with Trinidad, right? We had 11 shootings in a weekend, 7 homicides. So you have to act very quickly, and you have to focus specifically on the most violent gang members that have repeat gun offenses, and we've done that, and I think that has helped us tremendously. And lastly, technology. And I think nationwide, policing technology has improved so much. The chances of us being able to catch you if you commit a crime is much greater, and catching those people who commit repeat offenses drives crime down.
Chief, does the homicide count include vehicular homicides, where somebody runs somebody over or is drunk and it's then charged as a homicide?
Traffic fatalities, if they are traffic fatalities, are counted as traffic fatalities. If somebody intentionally runs down, and we actually have one case this year that was carried as a homicide because a person was intentionally run down by a motor vehicle. So if you are intentionally run down by a motor vehicle, that is a homicide. If it's a traffic fatality, it's carried on the traffic fatalities, which I believe we're at 32 for the year.
Chief, in May you told WUSA that you hope the department would close 30 cold case homicides this year. How close are you to that goal?
I think we're at 39 cold cases, right? 39 cold cases for this year. Well, I don't know, they're all cold cases. Those are prior year cases.
Prior year cases, 37.
37. So the cold cases, we've closed cases this year. I think the oldest one going back to 1989. Is that correct? 89? So I think our cold case unit working with the Attorney's Office is doing a fantastic job.
Chief, this is all good, sounds good. What do you say to the families of those who were killed in 2011 and the few cases that are still unsolved?
We're still working them. We never give up. We never give up. And we'll keep working those cases until we come to closure. We just ask that the families, stay with us and have faith in us, because I can tell you the team that we have now is the best in the country.
What can you tell us? There was apparently an incident last night. It sounds like it was near the Verizon Center. If it was 7th and F roughly, where a woman with a kid in the car was attacked and sexually assaulted. What can you tell? We're just learning about that.
Yeah, we put out a release earlier. I don't know how many of the details we want to share. We have some information on that case. I don't know if George, do you want to get into anything I shouldn't?
I
do have the press release with us, Chief. We don't really have a whole lot of basically a generic description of the suspect that we put out in the press release, and we're actually looking to citizens for more information. We're trying to gather additional information, re-interviewing the complainant and going back to the area where we believe they were looking for video.
We are following on one thing right now. We're following on one thing right at the moment. But all we know right now is that as the young women were leaving a parking garage area, as she exited the parking garage, a person jumped into the passenger side of her car. And that person was armed and took her to a different location where the sexual assault occurred. So I think that's really all we've got, right? Do we have are you putting out the lookout?
Yes, it's a black male. We don't really have an age, about 170 pounds, and was described as having a southern drawl, southern accent.
I will make sure you have a copy of that. So right now we're looking for, okay. Right now we're looking for, the best description we have is a black male with a southern accent, about 170 pounds. We do not have a description, any further description than that. Dark clothing, that's really all we have.
This was in the vicinity of the Verizon Center?
700 block of F, 700 block of F Street. Yep.
How alarming is that? I mean, it's for ladies.
It is very, very alarming. Yes. Yes, ma'am.
Chief, I have two questions. I think the issue that will affect a lot of people will be to find out that in a little over 24 hours, you are going to realign the patrol service areas. Can you give us some insight into your thinking of rolling it out just on late Friday afternoon when people are focusing on New Year's Eve holiday? Why do it now? Why do it this way? I know that there have been meetings in the community and what have you, but why not say, this is my final plan, but give people a week or 2 weeks notice that this is going to be the rollout? Mm-hmm. Why do it this way?
Well, we started going out to the community and putting this out 8 months ago. So I've been watching the trends that came out in the census data this past week. And I'll give you an example. We started going to community meetings. We held 9 community meetings around the city, and then I held a couple of additional community meetings based on additional requests from people, laying out these boundaries, getting input from community members. We actually made some changes from input that we got from the community members over the course of the 8 months. But what we are looking at, Ms. Brazil, and the reason we can't wait any longer, is exactly what the mayor said. Things are booming in the city. And in the downtown area alone, residential population increased by 4%. That's 15,000 residents in one downtown area. The number of the office workers increased by 17%, or 26,000 workers. The number of visitors to D.C. increased by 25%, 7 million visitors. So what that has done is it's made my police resources not evenly distributed. It's been 7 years since we've done this. So I started 8 months in advance, going out to community members, asking for input, providing boundaries and details. So we've been bombarding the neighborhoods with this information for 8 months, and it's time to, start with the first of the year, because I got to get those resources realigned.
In terms of challenges going forward in 2012, one of the challenges that has been widely discussed, especially this year, are problems with your communications unit in terms of difficulty in getting information, your communications unit not being forthcoming in a speedy fashion as regards information on issues of crimes or whatever's going on. Would you put that on your list of challenges going forward in 2012 that you intend to address?
Yes, and like I tell everybody, if there's any complaints, and most of the people in this room know this, if there's a request for information in and you have not received a response, now we do get a very large volume of requests. And if people are asking for very detailed data that has to be researched and pulled, they're going to have to go through the FOIA process, because we have a long backlog of those types of requests we're trying to get out. But everybody knows in this room, if you are not getting responsiveness from any unit in the MPD, Cathy.Lanier at dc.gov, and everybody in this room has used it, and most of them at 2, 3, or 4 in the morning, and they get an answer instantly. So if you have a complaint about any element of MPD and our responsiveness, you let me know and I'll address it.
One more question. You could address the, I guess there was, FOP indicated that violent crime has been up in the last number of months, actually been a spike in that. I know numbers can be used in different ways. If you could address that, kind of blaming it on Occupy and resources being drained from different parts. Also with the sexual assault, if you could say where the actual, apparently the initial abduction happened 7th and G, but where did the people end up?
On the sexual assault, I'm going to defer to my detective commander to do the interview. It's still very, very much under a very active investigation. I'd prefer he answer questions he feels comfortable with instead of me saying something I shouldn't. As far as the claim that the Occupy movement is responsible for the uptick in crime, I mean, that's just kind of ludicrous, if you ask me. I mean, we deal with protests in the city, about 2,800 protests and special events a year. This is what we do. We do it every day, and we did it every day before Occupy came here. The resources are almost exclusively SOD resources, which is what the SOD is for. When we do have larger events and we pull people from the community, from the neighborhoods, we do that on overtime most often so that we're not pulling from the neighborhoods. And if we do have to pull on-duty people from the neighborhood, we try and keep it to 2 or 3 per district. So it does not have an impact on the crime. And to claim that any one small thing like that would have an impact on crime is,
But has there been a spike, or is that just...
you know, crime, I mean, I don't know. I haven't looked into his specific claim. But when you look at crime patterns around the city between October and January, certain types of crimes are going to go up. It's the Christmas holidays. People have a lot of new things. There's a lot, you know. The most important thing is the most serious crimes, burglary, robberies, armed robberies, homicides, shootings, non-fatal shootings, all those things are still going in the direction we want them to go in. Do we periodically see things go up and down? Absolutely, based on the time of year. But to blame that on Occupy is just, I think, crazy. All right, thank you.